somebody who was a Republican congressman, he gives the receipts. He brings the receipts that 9/11 was an inside job. Muslims are a part of America. They've been a part of America. Thomas Jefferson had a Quran and he read it and he spoke about it. This country was very clearly founded on a principle called the separation of church and state and the right to practice your religion, not just a religion.
Okay, guys, just wrapped up the 1 on 10. I think that's going to drop before this episode, so check that one out. We'll link it here. But how'd you feel after that, man?
It was good. It was good. I think there was some heated debates, heated discussions, but we kept it civil. I think the prompts were strong and they brought a lot of good points. They brought a lot of knowledge. We appreciate that. But I think all the prompts still stood. So
yeah, you held your own, man. No sleep. And
no sleep.
Came in. Yeah. God Logic actually said he respects you a lot more now because you came solo. You came with no one.
Yeah, I actually came straight from the airport.
Yeah.
And I was flying the night before, so no sleep. But you know how we do it. We depend on Allah and we keep going forward.
Respect. And I know you preach in some of the most dangerous parts and you show up solo sometimes. And,
we've been O-Block, Tijuana. We were just recently in Jalisco, Mexico, which is like where a lot of the cartel territories. We went out to like the deep where you can see the cartel fields out there. Like you can literally see where they're growing their product.
Holy crap!
And even the military doesn't go out there.
Wow!
And we had 8 people that became Muslim in a village there. We set up a little mosque for them, and you know we're not afraid of any of these things. That's gonna come whenever it's written for me. I can't be afraid of it. And even when I just did a 1v20 at inside of a Bible seminary, so Bible University, and one of the professors there was like, "Weren't you afraid to take on 20 guys that are formally trained?" Either they were students or they were professors at the university. And I told them, look, if you stand on the side of the truth, then you don't worry about these things. Even for this 1v10, I mean, we saw that you had done an amazing job of reaching out to everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody, right? And whoever wanted to step up, stepped up. People flew in from Canada, from the UK just for this. But we did it.
I tried to get the best Christian debaters for you, man.
You did. You did amazing. And I got a lot of people that reached out to me, like people that are well-known debaters for the Christian side saying, hey, Sean reached out to me. So I know you reached out to everybody.
Yeah, I went hard, man. I wanted to make it an impactful episode.
It was amazing. And I'm sure people appreciate it. And I think everybody should share it, so that people can see that we can have these civil discussions.
Yeah, it was great to see you guys get along after.
Yeah.
It really was. Let's move on to something more dark, man, but the shooting at the mosque. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah, so this is a mosque in San Diego called Masjid Abu Bakr, ICSD, Islamic Center of San Diego. It is one of the historic old mosques that you can see that it's a mosque even when you're driving by. And it was my local mosque, meaning when I came to Islam and I started to become a Muslim, choose to be one, not just somebody from a Muslim household. And you've done a podcast about my life, so you know my story. In that story, when I talk about the first time I entered the mosque, this was that mosque.
Wow.
And the first person that met me when I entered that mosque was the one that worked in the store. He worked for the mosque, and that's one of the people that was killed.
Holy crap.
That's the first person. His name is Mansour. He is somebody of Syrian heritage. And it's really, really crazy because this is somebody who was there in Syria during the Assad regime, and his father, the dictators who were massacring their own people. So he survived all that. And, when there was civil unrest and civil war, he survived all that. And he went to Germany and he left. And we did a podcast with 3 of the sons of the survivors, and they tell that story. So such a crazy story that he survived that crazy Middle Eastern war time. And he came to the U.S., he made a life for himself. He established in a community, and he ends up being killed not at the hands of, some ISIS guy or some Al-Qaeda guy or even, the oppressive Iranian-backed Syrian regime. He ends up being killed by teenagers that are brought to the point of shooting up a school because of this crazy propaganda, this crazy hype, anti-Islam rhetoric that people like Elon Musk and others are putting out there. It's really causing people to go crazy and do crazy things, and people don't realize the damage that they're doing. This man he was 78 years old.
Wow.
78. Now, very interesting story though. I want to touch on what actually happened. And I think you'll find it very interesting. But first, who these people were. So this mosque from 1995 till maybe 2007 or 2012, whenever I left that neighborhood and I moved, this was my daily mosque. This is where I went every day, you know, as much as I could for 5-time prayers a day. And, you know, it was a very welcoming mosque. You know, it's a very open, has a lot of interfaith gatherings. People from different faiths come there all the time. They had hired a security guard, and this security guard is a brother named Amin. Amin, I don't know what to say about this man. He was such a wonderful man, such a loving man. He was a revert, meaning he wasn't born in a Muslim household. He became Muslim. I met him in the late 90s, like 97, around that time, you know, and he didn't know much about Islam. So I taught him the prayer. I taught him, you know, and he used to memorize the Quran. Like, even though he's not Arab, you know, he's African American, he's not somebody who speaks, but he memorized the entire Quran, word by word and letter by letter. And he used to lead the prayers, and he had a very beautiful voice when he would read. And he became a security guard because he really wanted to help and defend and protect. So he was struggling financially. So we had at one time we were going for a group to take people for Umrah, and we had sponsored him.
What is Umrah?
Umrah is when you visit Mecca and Medina, not the big Hajj during the time of Hajj, but when you visit Mecca off Hajj season, and you perform the lesser pilgrimage. It's a beautiful experience. And he went with me, and I'll share with you the text that he had sent, just to show what a wonderful person, how appreciative he was. And he got really sick. You know, he had some heart issues at that time. And we were like, look, you got to go back. Like, we're worried about you. And he was like, no, I want to stay here. I want to finish the pilgrimage because I came out here, and, you know, if I die, I'll be a martyr, you know. So he was just, you know, he wasn't afraid of death, you know, even in that situation. But he was fine. He got better. He came back to his family. He has 8 kids. You know, he's just a wonderful father. His children have, you know, done a lot of interviews and podcasts where they spoke about how nurturing, how caring he was. And he was a security guard there. So I knew him that intimately, right? He used to send me his Islamic questions. You know, he would say, you're my sheikh, you know, so we were very close. And the third person, our brother Nadir, he was a neighbor of the mosque, and his wife was a teacher at the mosque. And, you know, recently had gone there, and he had come up to me, he had said, hey, you know what? And his son Ramzi is a good friend of mine. Alhamdulillah, you know, we did the podcast he was on the podcast we did as well. His father had just come up to me and said, hey, let me take a picture with you, you know, because I watch all your videos and I see all the good that you're doing. And we took a selfie. And interestingly, Amin was there as well, because I was just entering the mosque. So all these guys were there. So these guys were just, you know, they're good husbands, good fathers. What's mind-blowing to me is you have a 17-year-old and a 19-year-old that is radicalized by the right-wing Christian, I mean, not mainstream Christians, but the extreme Christian propaganda that we're seeing. They were posting all this anti-Semitic, I don't know what to say, like propaganda as well, and anti-Muslim propaganda, all these things that the extreme right has been pushing, and people like Donald Trump and others that are promoting some of these people, and especially Elon Musk. If you see the nonsense that he's putting out there, they're pushing this false narrative of gangs and grooming gangs, which statistically have been debunked and all of that, but they keep pushing this as if immigrants are trying to push people out of their country, and it's just not true. I mean, it's absolute nonsense about this Jewish run conspiracy to bring immigrants in and so on. Amin wasn't even an immigrant. You know, these brothers weren't people that were immigrants. You know, it's just this hype and this hate has reached such a level that these 2 teenagers got 30 guns.
Holy crap.
I mean, these guys had bulletproof vests. They had military fatigue. They had white supremacist badges. They wrote a 70-some-odd page manifesto saying they want to start a race war. You know, we have to stop this hatred. We can have discussions. We can discuss the Bible. We can discuss the Quran. We can discuss our beliefs. But this is a country that is based on immigration. This is a country that's based, everybody here, unless your name is like Standing Bull or, you know, something like that, you immigrated here or your ancestors did. Trump is a recent immigrant. His great-grandfather immigrated here. Right. His wife herself isn't from the U.S. She came here, right? Elon Musk isn't even American. That guy's South African. He immigrated here, right? So Rubio, he was not from here. He immigrated here. So all these people that are pushing this agenda themselves are immigrants, right? So to understand that, look, we have to respect each other and live in harmony, and we're American citizens. We defend the country. We live by the Constitution. That's one thing. Yeah. But to stir this hatred that's being stirred, this is very toxic. So these two teenagers, they get these guns illegally because, of course, they're too young to own these guns. They get them from their parents. And again, I don't know why these parents aren't being brought up on charges, because as a part of the law, and I'm a gun owner myself, you have to secure your weapons. You have to make sure you have a gun safe, that it's locked, and so on and so on. I don't know how these...
So they were all registered in the parents' names?
Parents' names, yeah.
They had that many guns?
Apparently,
Holy
yeah.
crap.
So they had 30 guns. Now, what's even more concerning is the FBI and the police were warned about these two.
Really?
Yes. They had interviews with these two.
Wow.
One of them was even put into I don't know, one of those...
juvie.
It's not juvie. It's one of those where you are at risk for doing something crazy and they physically restrain you.
Psych ward? Or?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know the exact word nowadays, but he hadn't committed a crime. But because he had shown tendencies that he was going to do something to himself or to others, he was put in this restrained facility where they were, kind of going over his psyche and so on. And he was posting all this Islamophobic stuff. His parents, one of them at least, his parents had called the police saying, look, this guy's dangerous, but they didn't do anything.
Wow. The
police met with him and they didn't even take the guns. They didn't even stop them from having access to these guns. Even the day of the shooting, the police was called. Now, I do want to say, once the shooting started, the police showed up in force. I mean, I want to be respectful to the FBI and the police for the fact that after the fact, they did show up, but then it was too late.
Right.
So what actually happened, and this is very, very important for your watchers to understand, for the people watching, these two had this agenda to attack 3 facilities.
Holy crap.
This was just the first. And they weren't targeting the mosque at a time where it was the Friday prayer where you'd have the most people. They weren't targeting even during one of the 5 daily prayer times where you would have the most people. 11 a.m., there's hardly any community members there. So what were they targeting? They were targeting a school, an elementary school. That's part of their manifesto. They were going to attack children.
Oh my God.
That were in the school that's at the mosque. 150 students were there. Now, usually there's between 140 to 200 students there. So they knew that these little children, and I'm talking about kindergarten. I'm talking about little infant children that are there pre-K all the way to 6th grade that are there. So their attack was going to be on these children that are in the school, and they were going to just massacre hundreds of children, and that was going to spark this race war that they were trying to spark. And then they were going to go to a second facility and a third facility. They were going to continue their attack. When they got there, the mosque was pretty empty. There was a few people in offices, admins, teachers were there. When they got there, and I'm sorry, this is emotional for me. I mean, it's
your friend, man.
It's children of my very close friend, people that are from the One Message Foundation, like Abu Ibrahim. His son was there that day. Children of my closest friends were there present at that day. So they were shivering under those desks, hearing gunshots.
Wow. It's awful.
So these terrorists, and I don't know why they're not being called terrorists in the media. I mean, if that's not terrorism, I don't know what is.
They're probably white, so
they are white. Yeah. So this. Imagine. I mean, just for a second before we even talk about. Imagine if they weren't.
They would be.
Imagine if these were 3 Muslims, Muhammad, Abdullah, and Ahmed, that were immigrants that did the exact same thing with the same weaponry and attacked a Christian school or a Jewish school to attack children and killed innocent. Imagine Trump would be on that. I haven't even heard a single thing from Trump on this.
Yeah.
I haven't heard anything from the administration. I haven't seen Elon Musk tweeting about this. If they did, it's in some back corner somewhere, but I haven't seen it. But if this was a Muslim, if this was an Arab, if this was somebody that even was an Arab Christian, Muslims and Islam would be on trial right now.
Yep. I think the average American has associated terrorism with a darker skinned person.
Exactly. And the media is playing to that because these were absolute, by the definition, dictionary definition of a terrorist, these were terrorists.
Right.
But nobody's calling them that. So these two teenagers who had 30 guns, that had bulletproof vests, that had run drills, that had military fatigue. If you see the videos, they were live streaming it.
What?
They were live streaming it. So these guys on live stream, taking inspiration from this online Islamophobic rhetoric that's going on, taking inspiration from the Christchurch shooter from New Zealand. They even wrote Islamophobic and things on their guns. They come and they attack this mosque. They walk right in. Now, again, as I said, this is a time where there's no congregational prayer. There's no Friday prayer. There's no crowds. So they walk right in. The guard shack is bulletproof. So they have bulletproof windows. You can't see in. Amin is in this. My friend Amin is in the shack. Now, he can just call the police and wait it out. But this was a brave man. This was a man that cared about the lives of those children. So the first thing he did is he called in a shooter alert. So the school locked down. They locked the doors. And as is evident from the live stream, that they were trying to open those doors to attack the school, but they weren't able to get in.
Wow.
So that's the first thing. He saved all those lives. Secondly, he realized that they were going to start shooting at the doors. They were going to start shooting because they could shoot through the doors. So he risked his own life. He left that bulletproof guard shack. He came out and engaged them with only his handgun. That's all he had was one sidearm. No bulletproof vest. No, I mean, he had a vest, but it wasn't to the grade that theirs were.
Yeah.
So he engaged them, risking his life with a little handgun. Both of them had semi-automatic rifles. They had bulletproof vests. They had the advantage of being inside. So they're shooting back and forth. But what he did is he drew them out away from the school, saving the lives. He died that day. But he died a hero that saved hundreds of children, innocent children. Now, the second person that was killed that day, Mansour, 78-year-old, who was in his car. He was fixing something in the parking lot of the mosque. And that is the first person that I'd ever met at the mosque. His son is a da'i with us at One Masjid Foundation, one of my closest friends growing up, and when I got to Islam, when I was 18, he was one of the closest people that I grew up with. That's how closely I know him. I know his other sons. They all come and give da'wah with us. So he's a 78-year-old man that's in his car. He can drive away. He doesn't have to engage. But he sees this and he risks his life. This immigrant from Syria that survives wars and armies and all of this goes and risks his life because he realizes that if he doesn't engage and they turn towards the school, they can get through those doors. So he goes. Now Nader, the third person, he's at home. He's not even at the mosque, but his house is right across the street. But he knows that his wife is in that school teaching. He knows that his children are in that school. He knows that there are innocent children getting an education. So when he hears the gunshots from it, he just hears them. He puts his life at danger. He's that hero. He just walks out of his house and goes straight there. And he sees that one of the classrooms, because there's a playground on the side, they were still out there, not realizing the danger.
Wow. And
he warns them. And all of them, they go and they hide, and he saves all those lives. Because those shooters, when they came around the corner, if those people were still there, they would have killed those kids. And both of these men are killed in cold blood by these terrorists. But what's amazing is Amin, even though, and I want to emphasize this, all he had is one sidearm, right? And if anybody knows guns, if you have a handgun, a 9mm, and you're going against semi-automatic 7.62 and 5.56s that have way bigger calibers, and these guys had shotguns on them. Like I said, as the police reports tell us, in their cars, they had 30 guns that they got from their parents illegally because they weren't supposed to get them. And these guys were shooting with these weapons. This man with just a handgun was able to, even though they're wearing bulletproof armor, he was able to injure them so they weren't able to continue their rampage.
Wow.
So now these two cowardly terrorists, who are, according to their own manifesto, are Christians, are white supremacists. They believe in the white race being superior to other races. These are people who are in their manifesto call out the online platforms that radicalized them, that took them to that. And people like Elon Musk should be held responsible for the hate that they are putting and they're retweeting and they are promoting on platforms like X and so on. Because these guys mentioned that in their manifestos, and I read the whole manifesto. Now, they are unable to get to those children. They see that these brave men engaged them. One of them at least now is spitting out blood because he's been hit. So what do in a cowardly way? They drive away and they shoot at a random Latino or Mexican American worker who's just out there working in a yard, who's just innocent guy. They start randomly shooting. Now he's not hit, but realizing that now they're not going to be able to. Now that he's shot, he's not going to be able to hit those two other locations, which they really need to. Those people also need to be very thankful that Amin gave his life to stop these guys. They take their own lives.
Wow.
And they do it on a live. And you can see they're cowardly. They're putting it and they're putting it away. And, and then one of them shoots the other and then shoots himself. Now, throughout this whole time, there's nobody there. No police, no SWAT team. And again, I don't blame them. It takes time to get out there.
Yeah.
Afterwards, I think the whole police department was there. I mean, hundreds of police cars, hundreds of police officers came in full force. But, if it wasn't for those 3 brave souls who were true martyrs, inshallah, that gave their lives, that police would have done nothing for them.
Right.
Those children would have all been dead.
Holy crap.
I mean, these guys had thousands of rounds of ammo. They had 30 guns. Children and teachers, women, what could they have done? So, again, I'm very emotional about this. Imagine if this was a place that you went to every day, that your friends' children were there at that moment, and every one of the people killed were people that you have known for more than 10 years. Some of them, like I said, Amin, I had known since the 90s. Mansour, I had met in 1995. So, I mean, imagine, right? It's very sad. And for what?
Yeah.
They weren't criminals. They weren't terrorists. They weren't anybody with they had no criminal backgrounds. They weren't involved in the drug trade. They were just innocent, everyday, stand-up citizens. The only thing that gives me comfort is that I believe that they were martyrs, that they gave their lives to protect lives. And the Quran tells us the one who saves one life is like somebody who saved the entire mankind. Imagine the hundreds of children and the other locations that would have been hit. I don't know how many hundreds of lives were saved there as well.
Yeah.
So it is. But I think it's very sad when we see young people doing such terrorist acts with no rhyme or reason. They didn't attack a military facility. They didn't attack, some kind of jihadist training camp or something like this. They attacked a school with innocent children.
It's sad to hear because now people are going to be thinking about this as they go to their mosque.
Already. People are scared. And this is not the only one. There have been many other mosque shootings. Even since this, there was a man caught in New York with a weapon that was about to do a shooting, but people were able to restrain him. In Minnesota there was. In Canada there was. And before this, in Christchurch in New Zealand, there was 50-plus worshippers that were killed by a terrorist that went in there as well. And for what? These are just innocent, everyday working men and women, children. They're not involved in any politics. They're not involved in anything. It's just this hatred that's being pumped is very dangerous. And people are using it for their political agenda. People in Texas, you see this lady that was running for, I don't know what she was running for, that was just promoting all this nonsense. And she herself is Colombian. She's an immigrant herself, can't even speak English properly. And she's just out there talking about Muslims and immigrants. And the misinformation that's being put out there about Islam and about Muslims and about immigrants and about other communities like the Jewish community and the Indian community and other communities, it's toxic. And I really appreciate you, Sean, for giving us this platform to be able to dispel some of these myths. And, again, you are one of the people that I think is using social media very responsibly, and that's important to appreciate.
I try to, man, but unfortunately the algorithm favors controversy these days, so.
It does. It's crazy,
man. The spread of Islam to the West is like the most viral thing on Twitter.
And the funny thing is, Muslims are maybe like 1 or 2% of America. There's maybe 8 to 10 million Muslims out of 380 million Americans. It's a negligible amount. And I mean, if you look at fundamentalist Christian churches, there are way more, like the Westboro Church, for example. They have signs that say, "Thank God for dead American soldiers." Wow. I mean, you can see them go to the funerals of American soldiers and say, "Thank God for these soldiers being killed because they didn't do Christ's work." And I mean, the nuts that we have on the right wing of it, and left wing Antifa and those kinds of extremists, number-wise, outnumber Muslims way more. Even if you look at White House statistics or the FBI statistics, if you take the number of terrorist attacks, if you put together school shootings and right-wing extremist shootings, and Muslims aren't even on the map. But it's just this false narrative that's being pushed forward. And it's sad. Muslims are a part of America. They've been a part of America. Thomas Jefferson had a Quran.
Really?
Yes. Yeah. Wow. See, this is funny. Nobody knows these things, right?
Know that,
yeah. So Thomas Jefferson, interestingly, and you guys can look this up, he owned a Quran and he read it and he spoke about it. It's not just something that was, in his library. He actually referenced it and spoke about. He would call it Muhammadism, of course, because that was the term they would use. That's not a correct term for Muslims. But he would talk about Muhammadan doctrine, even when they were talking the forefathers of America, when they were putting together the Constitution. Many of them, in their writings, and their books have been written on this, they reference the Quran. They reference Islamic teaching. They reference the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. Thomas Jefferson also, interestingly, was not a Trinitarian. He did not believe in the Trinity. He was a Unitarian. He believed Jesus was not God, and he wrote about it. And he actually had his own Bible, which is also very interesting. I own a copy of, obviously a print of it, not the original, where he took out a lot of verses that, he felt were over-exaggerations and so on. So, I mean, to think this idea that this country was based on one religious or one ethnic group is just not true.
I was just going to ask that because a lot of people think it's founded on Christian values, this country.
Again, this country was very clearly founded on a principle called the separation of church and state and the right to practice your religion, not just a religion. Why did the pilgrims leave Europe? Because they weren't able to practice their religion freely under churches that were government-run churches, the Church of England and so on, right? So they came to this country so people could practice their religion. And in the Constitution, very clearly, they put those safeguards of the freedom of religion, not freedom to be Christian, the freedom of whatever you want to be. And none of the founding forefathers were Jewish. None of them were Muslim, or nobody's making that claim. But they also weren't all Trinitarian Christians. They had different beliefs even amongst the Christian belief sets. And many of them were Masons. They had their own mindset as far as Masonry goes, and you can study what that is. But they definitely did not believe that this country was to be governed by any one ethnicity or one religion, even though many of them owned slaves, because that was at the time. Yeah. But they did put in the constitutions what I think was forward thinking about all men being created equal and so on. And some of these things were added later, like under God was added later on. But even if we take that under God, which God are we talking about? It doesn't mean it has to be, it's not under Jesus or under Allah or under, Buddha or something like this. So freedom of religion has really been a part of the core concept of this country. Diversity. All of the forefathers were immigrants. They came from Europe, So they weren't, like I said, I mean, the natives, the Cherokee, the Apache, the different nations that were here, the natives of America, they can have a right to say this is our land from generations. But everybody else, either you or your family at some time immigrant here.
Yep.
Go do your DNA tests, right?
Yeah, statistically, in our lifetime, actually, white people will no longer be the majority in America.
Yeah, and again, whether that will happen or not happen doesn't really matter. In the end, we're Americans. If you're an American and I'm an American and your passport's blue and my passport's blue, we're the same. That's the Constitution of this country, right? Whether you're black, whether you're white, whether you're Chinese, whether you're Hindu, whether you're Christian, whether you're Jewish, whether you're Muslim, does not matter to you being an American or you being a part of this country. You have the right to practice your religion the way you want. There are Satanists in America that have the Church of Satan that worship Satan. Yeah. And according to the Constitution of this country, they have the right to do so. I may disagree with their beliefs. I may disagree with what they believe, but they have the right as an American to do so. There are communists in America. There's a Communist Party of America. I was shocked when I saw that, but I met one and he gave me a booklet on American communism. There's a very strong socialist movement in America.
Very strong.
right? I mean,
40% of Gen Z now.
40%.
40%.
Wow.
Crazy, right?
I mean, what's his name? The one who's running for president? Joe? No, not Lieberman. Bernie Sanders. Yeah. I actually read a lot of his writings and a lot of his tweets. And again, not that I agree with everything with any politician, but I do agree with a lot of things he says. But I am very surprised that he's openly a socialist, right?
He was for a while. Now he's a millionaire, so I think he's toned back a little bit.
Okay.
He's 1%
but,
now, but
I did see a comment from him stating, and maybe it's an old comment, that he was a socialist, right?
He would still probably call himself that. But
so, I mean, whether he lives by the principles or not, but if he calls himself a socialist, and he still has a right to be an American, right? And we are a democratic country, right? But he has the right, and he was a governor and a senator, and right? So I don't understand why Muslims don't have the same right to practice our religion. I mean, people of different faiths, even if you look at the Latter-day Saint Christians who people call Mormons, they don't call themselves Mormons anymore. So out of respect, I'll call them LDS Christians. You know, they have many tenets of their faith that other Christians would deem as heretics. And during the 1v10, you know, we talked about this, and the Christian debaters all said, no, they're not Christians, and they're heretics, and they're, right? And they have a group amongst them that's called the FLDS, Fundamentalist Latter-day Saints. And I've met with them before, and they currently practice polygamy in Utah openly. Really? And Utah has a law where even though federally polygamy is banned, but in Utah you can't implement that law, meaning that they've skirted the law. So they're openly practicing polygamy as Christians, according to their belief, in America, and they have the right to do so. Even though, I mean, it's federally banned, so I don't know how that works, but as an American, I would say, look, freedom of religion, right? There are people of the Jewish faith who have entire cities. You know, if you go up upstate New York, I was driving through one day, I saw an entire little town that was entirely Jewish. I mean, it was 100% Orthodox Jewish, right? That's okay. So what? You know, there are separatist white nationalists in Montana that I've watched videos from. I haven't been there myself, right? I don't know if that'd be too welcome. That have entire little compounds that, you know, have hundreds of families living there. They don't pay taxes. They're against the U.S. government. But Muslims aren't doing any of that. You know, if you get, you know, a lot of Muslims in a neighborhood, people start, oh, it's a takeover. But if you have a lot of Hindus in that neighborhood, nobody's saying it's a takeover. Even though, I mean, the ratio of people of Hindu religious beliefs, of Indian ethnicity, their ratio of going up of immigration in the U.S. is higher than Arabs or other ethnicities. But nobody's saying anything. I mean, J.D. Vance's wife is Hindu, right? The RNC's conference began with a Sikh Hindu prayer.
Wow.
Nobody objects to that. I mean, as Muslims, we're a lot closer to Christian beliefs than even people of the Jewish faith, and let alone the Hindu faith. Think about it, right, John? We believe in one God, right? People of the Jewish faith believe in one God, and Christians also claim that they believe in one God. So that's something that we all consider as monotheism. We all are Abrahamic faiths, right? We believe Jesus was born of a miraculous birth and Virgin Mary. Now, Hindus don't believe that, and Jews don't believe that. But us and Christians both believe that. We believe Jesus was a prophet, as the Bible also states, and Christians would agree there. We believe he was a Messiah, and Christians would agree there. Neither one of those would be agreed upon between Christians and Jews. So when you say Judaic-Christian values, it kind of throws me off, you know, because in reality, we have a lot more in common with Christians in our belief set than they do with Jews or Hindus. And Hindus definitely not, because their base faith is, and again, they have the right to practice their faith. Nothing wrong with the fact that whatever they believe, according to the Constitution, they have the right to keep. But if you're talking about, you know, meshing together, I don't understand why Islam would be any different, right? Now, again, we have a lot of things in common with Jews as well. We do believe in strict monotheism, and they eat kosher, we eat halal, it's very close, and so on. So I don't think there's a conflict there either. Now, we may disagree on, for example, the issue of Palestine, right? But that's not a Christian-Jewish issue or Muslim-Jewish issue even. That is a issue of Zionism and what they're trying to take away from a people's rights, the Palestinian people, and an apartheid state that does not give all of their citizens equal rights, that I have seen myself.
Oh, you've been to Palestine?
Oh, I have many times. I've been to Jerusalem. I mean, probably at least 5-6 times.
So you could speak from your own experience.
Yeah, and when I went there, for example, I had to stand on a different line.
Really?
And people who are Jewish, for example, that I saw, not soldiers, regular people, they could carry Uzis and guns all over, but even people of Palestinian ethnicity that were working for the Israeli government couldn't carry guns.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was really insane. The checkpoints were Palestinian people who were, again, they're citizens of the same country, but just because you're of Palestinian heritage, you're stopped. You're not allowed to go through. But people of the Jewish faith are. Christian Palestinians are not allowed to go through. Tucker Carlson did a few episodes on this as well. They talked about the Christian Palestinians that are also being discriminated against. But the mega churches that are taking APEC money, they don't want to talk about this. Again, and this is not something that is against the Jewish faith or the Jewish people. Many people of the Jewish faith disagree with Zionism, and I have had many conversations with them, and they have spoken against the atrocities that have been carried out by the Netanyahu government. Even many Israeli citizens don't agree with Netanyahu, so I don't want to paint people with a broad brush. We need to always be understand the nuance here, that Zionism and what's going on in Palestine is one thing, but Judaism is not Zionism. Those are not the same thing, right? We can disagree with somebody's Zionist ideas of taking over another people's land and kicking them out, but at the same time, respect the Jewish faith, and the fact that they have the right to practice that faith in the United States should always be protected.
Agreed.
From the Constitution. And the same thing with Christianity. I think it's very interesting that if you look at Christians in the occupied state right now, which is called Israel, and how they're treated, it's horrible, right? Christian mayors of different villages that are there have spoken about this at length, about the discrimination they get, but these mega churches still send all this money because, again, they're taking their cuts and they're doing their, but this propaganda should not be marked as a religious divide on creedal issues. It's not, right? It's not Muslims against Christians or even Muslims against Jews. This is purely a humanitarian issue, talking about the Palestinian people, and many people of the Christian faith, Jewish faith, atheists, agnostics, and Muslims will all agree that the genocide in Gaza, a population that could not leave. You can't just tell them leave. I mean, not all of them support Hamas or have anything to do with Hamas. They're just regular people. Imagine, I mean, like, for example, we have a current government, which is, Donald Trump's government, but not every American voted for Trump, right? Let's say Trump does some crazy stuff like start some wars, which he did, and then another country blocks us in where we can't leave America and just carpet bombs us, bombs hospitals, right? And we're like, hey, look, we're not soldiers, we're not fighting, we don't want to fight, we want to just leave. We're like, no. The people of Gaza can't leave. Their borders are closed off. Wow. And then they're just carpet bombed. I mean, depending on statistics, almost 30 to 40% of the population has been killed.
Jeez, isn't it 2 million population?
Yes, that's the whole population.
So
is 2 million.
30 to 40%.
Yeah, so I mean, depending on some statistics, they're coming out, 200, 300, 400,000 people that have been killed.
Wow.
Even if you take the lower numbers of, the IDF and stuff, 20, 30, 40,000 that are innocent, that have been killed, and so on. And children, I mean, you see these children that have been buried in rubble, when their families are going to have to write their name. They write their names on their children's hands, so in case their building gets bombed, they can recognize them in the rubble.
God.
That is just, I mean, who can support killing children and bombing hospitals? Like, if you want to fight a military force on a battleground, that's one thing.
Yeah.
But at least allow the non-combatants to leave Gaza. But no, they're boxed in. It's a genocide.
Yeah. Don't they know, like...
I mean, things shock me. Like I'll say something, Sean. I saw a video of these Israeli soldiers, a prisoner.
Oh, my God.
And it's a video. No denial that it happened. And there was a group, like there was a gang. They were a guy who was picked up.
A guy?
A guy, yes. A male
God.
prisoner. And they were gang raping him.
What?
And the authorities are watching this. This is on, I mean, their prison cameras are capturing this, and nobody's stopping it. When it leaked, international community got obviously outraged that you have somebody, it's against international law, it's against humanitarian, it's against any law you can think of, that something should be done. They had a riot in Israel. But the riot wasn't to condemn it. The riot was that you cannot say anything to these soldiers that what they were doing was correct. I was shocked. I don't know how, if a Muslim did that, 100% I would condemn it.
That's crazy.
You know, in Islam, we cannot harm prisoners of war. We cannot, anybody, we cannot, I mean, a guy in a prison, a gang, I don't know any ideology that can justify that.
That's why I'm confused, because if they're truly religious, don't they know there's consequences to
I 100% agree with you.
actions.
And this is why I don't think this is a religious conflict. This is a racial superiority of some people that feel that their race is a chosen race and is superior and has access and has rights to a land that somebody else is in. And at any price, even at the price of children being massacred, at the price of such atrocities, they feel that they have the right to do so. And I would disagree with that. And I think most Americans would disagree with that. And again, if a Muslim does something against Islam, whether it's ISIS, whether it's any of these organizations, we condemn it. We say this is wrong because Islam has a moral code that we live by. Even in times of war, we don't kill women, we don't kill children, we don't kill the innocent. The Prophet, peace be upon him, even said you don't cut down trees. Now, there are Muslims that violate those laws, and we are here, and I'm here openly and verbally and audibly condemning that, right? We live by the Quran and by the Sunnah and the way of the Salaf al-Ummah, and anybody who violates that, we condemn that.
Right.
I just don't understand how people justify such things, you know, that are going on. And again, I don't think this is really a religious conflict. This really has to be a humanitarian issue, and I hope that the people like Mamdani and others who are trying to stand on the right side of history, and I may not agree with him on many of his politics and other stance and views and so on, but I do have to respect the fact that he is standing on the right side of history.
That was
with this.
bold. You saw him call out.
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
mayor of New York City.
Yeah,
crazy.
And I think the new Gen Z, whatever, is opening their eyes to the genocide in Gaza and realizing that this is something that we don't want to even be silent about.
The polls show it. They favor Palestine, the young generation. It's the boomers that are, I think they've been so brainwashed.
They
40
have.
years, 50 years of programming.
You know, there's a book called Real Bad Arabs, and real is spelled R-E-E-L. And I read it it was part of my master's program I was reading. And it just talked about this fake media image that had this fake narrative that had been for generations pushed out, and they were showing like black and white videos of movies where they just showed these Arabs as absolute savages, and it was this media spear that had been planned out. So yeah, the boomers were in that generation, and I get it, but you know, Gen Z and Gen X and others and millennials and others, I hope are people that.
Dude, even myself, I've had to do some unlearning because all the movies that show terrorism, always a darker skin color.
Right.
I've been seeing war my whole life. So I just associated that with bad, you know.
And it's interesting because if you think about it, I mean, the Iraq war, Iraq didn't start it. Right? Yeah. I mean, the United States attacked Iraq with this false premise of, you know, Saddam being related to 9/11, which obviously he wasn't. Right. WMDs, do you remember that? WMDs, we kept hearing there were weapons of mass destruction. No weapons of mass destruction. I mean, that turned out to be a false narrative.
They're doing that right now.
Well, right now, again, in the war in Iran. And again, I don't support the Iran regime. I don't agree with their views. I don't agree with the way they run their country. I'm not supporting them in that way. But I do have to say that they did not initiate this war. Right. I mean, we started this, and I don't understand why. It's not helping Americans. My gas has gone in California. I'm paying $7 a gallon. It's insane. And everything's gone up because, again, the Strait of Hormuz is a bottleneck right now, and I don't know what the plan was. I mean, I don't know if there was a plan. Like as an American,
it doesn't make logical sense.
Billions of my tax dollars right now are going towards this war, which I don't understand what the goal is now, right? I mean, the war in Afghanistan, I don't even understand what that was about because we invaded a country that had nothing to do with 9/11. Afghanistan as a country had nothing. The government of Afghanistan at that time clearly said, look, we've got nothing to do with this. So we invaded a country that was ruled by a group called the Taliban. And we killed, I mean, depending on the statistics you look at, I mean, hundreds of thousands of people, right? Innocent people, weddings were bombed, and these are all facts. Many of our own soldiers died, thousands of American soldiers. Right? It was one of the most expensive wars in American history. Trillions, not billions, trillions were spent. It was the longest war in American history. Longest war in American history. right? World War I, World War II, Vietnam, longest war. And then we handed the country back to that exact same group called the Taliban.
Makes no sense.
What was the plan?
Make some money. Probably.
Yeah,
Military industrial complex.
All the, the Halliburtons and Dick Cheney and all those guys that were charging us as tax dollars $120 for a box of cereal that they were sending out. Yeah, that was the plan, and that one definitely worked.
Yeah, a lot of money was made there.
I mean, many innocent Afghan lives were lost. Many innocent American lives were lost. It was just
awful.
Yeah, and the same thing is happening again in Iran, and I don't understand what the plan is.
And then this is a crazy rabbit hole. When you look into how these terrorist groups form, we formed some of them.
100%.
Isn't that nuts?
I mean, not only did we weaponize and form many of these groups, even what we call the Taliban today, come from the Mujahideen that were fighting the communists, who were meeting presidents in the White House. That those Stinger missiles, those weapons were all given to them by us as the U.S. government and taxpayers, right? Not just that. I mean, now a lot of credible information is coming out that even some of these were absolute CIA plans, right? I did a podcast with a U.S. congressman. It's going to be posting, or it's probably already posted by now. But
which one?
Yeah, you gotta.
Is it up or?
It is up. It's on the One Message Foundation channel, but it's our podcast called D3. It's very, very interesting because this is a man who is not somebody who's an outsider. This is somebody who we'll put a link with you so you can get it. Yeah, somebody who was a Republican congressman, and I don't want to give too much away, but he gives the receipts. He brings the receipts that 9/11 was an inside job.
Yeah.
I mean, I personally was shocked during this podcast.
Wow.
Because he is a Christian, white, from Pennsylvania, right-wing Republican, who was in Congress for more than a decade, who was the head of the firefighters union, who was the head of the firefighters guild, who was there the day after 9/11 on site. And he said, I was there and I spoke to the firefighters myself that said, we went to those buildings, the planes didn't do anything.
Wow.
We went into those buildings and we could have put that out, but we saw the explosives that were inside that took down and killed 300 plus American firefighters.
Holy crap.
He gives names of the intelligence officials. He gives evidence during this podcast that, and if you want to get him on your podcast, I'll get you connected with him. He gives evidence that the U.S. intelligence knew that Osama bin Laden at a point was in Iran, supported by the Iranian regime. This is how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Wow.
And he gives the name of the intelligence official that he personally called, said, look, I know where he's at. We have people on the ground that have identified him. And they said, yes, they affirmed that we know that he's in Iran being protected. This is why the whole Iranian regime being this bad guy is also it's just a game. Iran supported the U.S. in the war in Afghanistan, in the war against Iraq. They were in the White House, the same Khomeinis and the same Ahmadinejads were speaking openly about helping the U.S. In many wars and working with U.S. intelligence and so on. So this is all a game, It's the innocent people that get killed and are harmed in the end. So they knew where he was, and he was in Iran at that time. He wasn't even in Afghanistan. And he said, look, why don't we get him? And the intelligence guy said, no, we need the boogeyman right now.
Insane.
Yeah.
Wow.
And this is a U.S. congressman. This is not somebody off the street.
Yeah, so
this
he
is
has nothing
a
to gain,
Republican,
yeah.
A Christian white man.
I hope the truth gets out. I know Tucker did a little series on it too.
Yeah, Tucker did a podcast with the same man.
Oh yeah. Okay, that's cool.
But he dropped some receipts that had never been dropped on this podcast.
And when you think about what started after 9/11, it's still going on to this day.
It is. I mean, the Islamophobia, this conflict, and again, what I want to emphasize here is a lot of these things then fuel hate on the Muslim side. Young Muslims who are sitting, in a country that are just, regular people, see videos of Muslim women being shot at Walmart just for wearing a hijab. Recently I had an incident where I was in Atlanta, Georgia, And my mother, who's, again, she's 78 years old. She's, old woman. She's just walking. And this guy comes and he mocks at it. He starts cussing F, He didn't see me at the moment. And I saw him. I engaged him. I was like, what? What do you got to say? And then he backed down like a coward. But why? It's an old woman shopping. What's she doing to you? Nothing. But this hatred that's being fueled. Now, there's a woman, for example, on the East Coast that, she was wearing the Islamic garb and she was shot at a Walmart just for looking Muslim. And, so why? Why this hatred? If a Christian woman wants to dress up like a nun, who cares? Let her, it's her freedom of religion. If a Jewish woman wants to cover her head because that's a part of her faith as a married Jewish woman, that's fine. That's her right. If a Muslim woman wants to cover up, that's her right. This is a part of the Constitution of the United States. If somebody wants to go to a church and pray and worship, that's their right. Somebody wants to go to a synagogue. Somebody wants to go to a Hindu temple. Somebody wants to go to a Sikh Gurdwara. They have that right according to the Constitution of this country. Well, so do Muslims. I don't know why when it's a Muslim going to a mosque, it becomes a threat. I don't get it.
To me, it's all by design because you're not born with hatred.
It's true.
Right?
Yeah.
You learn it through environment.
100%.
You're not born being a hateful person.
That's very true. That's why you see children getting along with everybody.
Exactly.
But
I never even thought about stuff like this as a child.
Yeah, me neither. And again, I wasn't even raised around Muslims, right? Yeah. So I was raised around a lot of people of Mexican descent who were Christians and Catholics. And, we never thought about, oh, this guy's Jewish or this guy's Muslim or this guy's Christian. They were just people that went to school with.
100%.
And, again, if you look at terrorist organizations, there are Catholic extremist terrorist organizations. There are extremist right-wing Protestant organizations. Like look at the KKK. Look at, the Knights of Templar and all these Aryan Nation and all this Christian Nation and these right-wing terrorist organizations. There are Jewish terrorist organizations that are listed by the FBI as Jewish fundamentalist terrorist organizations. There are Hindu terrorist organizations. Look at, RSS and all this stuff that goes on there. There are Sikh terrorist organizations there are atheist, agnostic terrorist organizations. In fact, if you want to talk about numbers, atheism has killed more people than all the religions put together.
Really?
Yeah, so that's interesting, right?
I didn't know that.
So if you look at the most murders, and you can look this up in AI and all that, by an individual, right? There are two top individuals. And depending on which AI bot you're using and looking at statistics, they'll argue, but it's Stalin and Mao.
Okay.
So between 200 million plus people killed under each one of these.
And they were both atheists.
And they were both atheists. They were, again, communist, Stalin, anti-religion, hated all religions, right? Mao as well, banned churches, banned mosques, massacred Muslims in Turkmenistan, which is, Western China. Till today in the Xinjiang province, they're being, put in re-education camps and tortured and so on.
Jeez.
So both of these were people that were anti-religion. Mao, according to what I've been, and I do a lot of reading, there are Chinese officials that have defected and so on. They're saying it's 300 million plus people that he killed.
Holy
right?
crap.
And that's so both of those are atheists. Now, if you want to talk numbers, and you can put this in ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, if you just take religious traditions and how many people have died in those religious wars, if you're talking religion, because atheism will take the number one slot, then Christianity would be number one. I mean, if you look at the Crusades, if you look at the Spanish Inquisition, if you look at the massacre done by the Spanish under the name of the cross in South America, in Mexico, if you look at either one of the world wars, they were both initiated and largely fought by Christian nations on both sides. I mean, if you look at Hitler was a Christian.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, you could say that he wasn't a good Christian. I mean,
definitely could say that.
You could make that argument. But what's interesting? Hitler clearly said, "I am a German Christian." This is his own statements, right? He seems to have been raised in the Catholic tradition as a child, but you could argue whether he was Catholic or Protestant. But his statement was, when he was asked, he said, "I'm a German Christian. That's what I am. Christian of German descent." He made that statement. He, at least 3 times, he quoted the Bible in his lectures, right?
Wow.
From my research, I found, you could probably find more. Somebody who's a historian, I'm not a historian, but just reading. So his symbol that he used was the iron cross, right? He was a Christian. Now, did he live by Christian principles? You definitely say no. What's very interesting, I had a debate with a Christian pastor who felt that he would be in heaven.
Really?
And why it was interesting. And again,
I gotta hear this.
I'm not saying that this is a belief across Christian theologies. I want to be fair. But this was a debate, and it's on our channel. And he said that salvation is free. Anybody who believes in Jesus Christ and takes him as Lord or Savior, doesn't matter what sins he does. Wow. Jesus died for his sins. Jesus takes on all the sins of humanity. So Jesus' death was the price for the sin. So as long as you accept Jesus Christ, you're going to heaven. So I was like, would Hitler go to heaven? He said, yes.
Wow.
I said, how? He said, well, he professed his faith in Jesus Christ. And if that is true, then Jesus took on his sins. So whatever sins he did, the Holocaust, whatever massacres, wars, again, many Christians would disagree with that. So I'm not saying that this is a Christian core concept, but this is a debate, and it's on our channel, One Message Foundation. You can find the video and see it, right?
I always wondered what that line was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It is a very interesting line because it kind of doesn't make sense to me personally, which is that the idea is that Jesus came to earth and died for the sins of mankind.
Right.
Okay. So that would mean that our sins are not our accountability. If you accept Jesus, then all your sins go on him, and his death pays the price for your sins. So what is the motivation to be accountable for what you do? I don't see any, right?
Yeah.
And that's why growing up, when I used to be involved in gangs, all my gang friends were either Catholic or Christians, and they were practicing. I mean, they were not like, as Mormons have a term called Jack Mormon, where you're just not Mormon by name. So they were not Jack Christians. They would go to church Sundays. They would go with their families. They would go to Wednesday Bible group. That's how I studied the Bible originally. It wasn't to debate. It was because I would go to Bible studies with my friends.
Right.
Every one of them had a Bible at home. They would read it. They had crosses tattooed. Every single Mexican gang member that I've ever met has some kind of a religious Christian tattoo, whether it's Mary, whether it's the two hands praying with the rosary, whether it's a cross. And not all of them were Catholic too. Don't think like, oh, it's just a Catholic tradition. No, many of them were Baptist. Many of them went to Protestant churches. I knew some that were even Jehovah's Witnesses, right? But the way they would justify the crimes they did, to me personally, this is not like theory, these people that I grew up with, was, well, yeah, we kidnap, we do this, we sell drugs, we kill people, but, in the end, Jesus died for my sins. So like my Catholic friends, we would go to confession every Sunday, and I still remember those confessions, and I would go with them, because I wasn't raised in Islamic tradition, right? Even though I never called myself a Christian, but I used to go to confession. So I would go to the church, and you would sit on the other side of this priest, and you would say, "Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned." Kidnapped a guy, he's still tied up in my basement,
my gosh.
and these are real conversations. And then the priest would be like, "Son, that's not good. That's not holy." And this, and then we'd be like, "Yeah, but I'm a gang member. Like I can't get out. Like this is what I do." And they'd be like, "All right, well, donate to the church, say these many Hail Marys, try not to do it again." And I remember telling the priest, he was like, "You know what? We are going to do it again because that's what we do. We're gang members." And he's like, "Oh, I'll see you next Sunday."
Oh my God.
Right? And he would walk out saying, "My sins are forgiven." And now, not to just throw all the blame on the Catholics, on the Protestant side, I would go to churches and they would be like singing and dancing, and it would be like, "Jesus took the price for your sins. He died for your sins. And you all you got to do is believe in Jesus, and salvation is free. It's a gift. You don't earn it. Your actions don't matter. It's a gift from Jesus' death." And you'd be like, "Oh, okay, so it's free. I don't have to earn it. No, okay, my actions don't count, so I'm going to go do whatever. And, as long as you say you believe in Jesus, you're going to heaven." So that mindset just never made sense to me, because I took it as from a very street level, regular person mindset, right? Meaning, I was reading, and I said this in a Bible study. This is the exact conversation I told a preacher. During it's called I even tell you the name of the place. It's called Horizon Church, and it's on Balboa and Genesee in San Diego. So Wednesdays they used to have a Protestant, not Catholic, Bible studies, and I used to go to there. So I was sitting there, and they were telling me that Adam ate from a tree, and they were saying it was an apple, but obviously we know it's not an apple. But right, okay, so Adam ate from the tree, and he wasn't supposed to eat from the tree. Okay, I get it. And that's such a sin that you would be born with sin, meaning every child is born with sin. You are sinful. And I was like, that doesn't make sense. right? Because I've seen I mean, I'm sure you've got family or friend, you've seen a little child.
For sure.
A little
innocent.
Baby's innocent.
Yeah.
Like when you were a baby, you don't even know what sin is, right?
No.
You were just a baby. You know, even if you did something wrong, even if you knocked something over, even if you caused a fire, let's say your baby walks and he tosses a candle and nobody's like, put him in jail, you know that, right? No, it's a baby. He doesn't know right from wrong. He doesn't have morality. His brain hasn't developed scientifically, even from an agnostic mindset. Your frontal lobes haven't developed enough to know right from wrong.
Right.
So children to me are innocent. And Islam, that's our belief. Children are born innocent. Children are not held until you hit the age of discernment, where you can discern between right and wrong around the age of puberty, until what we call bulugh. You are not held accountable for any actions. If a 5-year-old baby even does something wrong, we don't hold them accountable. To me, that makes sense. That makes sense, Sean, right?
Yeah, because it's all about knowing.
Exactly. The decision that you make
right.
as a rational human being. So that baby that's just born hasn't made a decision. So I could not consider that baby to be a sinner.
Yeah.
Even if that baby as a toddler or as an infant does something wrong, right? Let's say, you've got a really expensive piece of art and let's say, in the future you have a little baby and the baby, is crawling and he knocks it over. Are you going to be like, I'm going to sue you?
No.
You're like, it's a baby. They don't know, right? You let it go because they're innocent. Now, once it's a teenager, if he's 16, 17, and he's, rushing through the house and he drops it, then you can hold him accountable. Yep. You can ground him. You can punish him or whatever. He's your child. But until that time of the ability to discern between right and wrong, children are innocent to me. Right? But the priest said, no, children are born sinful. You're born with sin. Okay, that didn't make sense. All right, how do you get rid of that sin? So God sent his son, and again, some Christians would say it was God, and some would say it's the son of God. That's confusing as it is. Yeah. But okay, so God sent his son to be killed to pay that price. Wait, so innocent children are sinful even though they haven't done anything, and humans kill the Son of God, and that's a good thing? Does that make sense to you, Sean? Because it doesn't make sense to me. So I put it in very, simple terms for myself, right? So let's say there's a store, right? And you're not supposed to take things without paying for them. That makes sense. Mm-hmm. So you go and you pick up a piece of candy, right? And you walk out with it. And, Adam eating from the tree. You feel bad about it. You go back to the store owner and you say, hey, I'm sorry. I should have paid for it. Can I pay for it? Can I put it back? What can I do? And he says, no. You and your children and your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren and your great-great-great-great-grandchildren are all going to jail. You're all sinful. You're all taking this crime of what you did. That makes no sense to me.
Not at all.
Right? Okay. But if you want to make up for it, you bring all your family, all your people, and you kill my son. Innocent son, 4.0 student, never did anything wrong, wonderful, perfect human being. This son, if you kill him, but torturously, put a crown of thorns on his head and beat him and put him on a cross and you kill him, then we're even. How does that make any sense? Like that does not make any sense to me. I mean,
it does seem far-fetched logically.
God, to me, God is all merciful. He's all forgiving. If you sin, you don't have to go to a priest and repent. You don't need confession. You should be able to have that spiritual relationship with the creator of the universe and say, you know what? I made this mistake. I'm responsible. 100%. This was my bad. I ask you for forgiveness. I'm going to make amends. I'm going to change myself the best I can. And if I fall in that sin again, I'm going to come back to you again. And God is so loving that he just forgives you. I don't think we need to kill the Son of God or God himself for sin to be forgiven. That's not a merciful or even a just. I mean, in American justice system, would we accept that?
No, not at all.
If a judge was said, we got all these murderers and rapists and massacres and robbers and all these guys, but we're going to take an innocent person and kill him instead, and you let all of them go because he's going to pay the price for their sins. Would any legal system think that's justice, let alone mercy? So, no. I don't know. It didn't make sense to me, but, everybody has a right to believe what they want to believe.
Absolutely. Well, this is fun, man. I know you're traveling a lot. You'll be busy. How can people support you and all that?
Well, first thing, I don't have a Patreon. I'm not here trying to make money off these things. All these Islamophobes that go out there, they're trying to make a living, not me. We're just here to build bridges, to share the message of Islam, to have good conversations. So first thing, if you guys just have some conversations, take that hatred down, build some bridges. Like, if you see a Muslim praying or a Muslim woman wearing niqab or hijab, there's no hate there. They're just practicing the religion, what this constitution allows. So take that hatred down. That's the first thing I would say. And secondly, you support the Sean podcast here, the digital hour right here. Sean Kelly is doing great work. Support it. For us, we have a channel called One Message Foundation on YouTube and SheikhUthman.live on Instagram and TikTok and so on. We don't monetize our videos, but again, if you go check out the videos and share them, I think it's great in the way of, building bridges. And if you want to support One Message Foundation, you can from the website, onemessagefoundation.com. But again, for me, I'm not trying to make money off of this. I am here to spread a message, build bridges, build understanding, and hope that we'll have a peaceful world in this world and people can connect with their creator to have a peaceful life in the hereafter.
Beautiful. Thanks for coming on.
Great talking to you, Sean.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
See ya.
If you learned anything from this episode or got any value at all, please share this episode with a friend. It helps us grow the channel, it helps us grow the podcast, and it means a lot to us. Thank you so much.